Yo, it's Dohrok here, and today I want to talk about the direction of Lost Ark a bit. Are they going to do anything about book and gem prices? Is there going to be any interesting content coming for the game? Are these new hell keys doing anything for progression? Or how many more Gamba systems are going to be introduced? Let's get into it and take a look at what's in store for us.
And I want to start with what's coming most immediately for us, the Kazeros Race. AGS just announced that the Kazeros Race will be taking place starting December 3rd, and normal and hard mode will be released on November 19th. I'm glad AGS has finally listened to something and realized that people practicing in other regions in the relatively short time for non-whales is a disadvantage. However, the decision to remove the frog and not just leave that in until the race, or help with gem supply maybe, is very questionable to me. It's a good thing to have a couple of more weeks to work on gear and improve combat score. I'm glad we get a chance to practice in our region before the race without having to take a trip to Korea. But it also costs 30% more right now. So while it's good to have the race start after the raid, it should have already been thought of and announced, especially since the community told them to do this like weeks ago. I don't really understand why AGS has to wait so long to communicate anything to its player base. And there's still a large topic around the Kazeros Race and AGS's policy surrounding RMT, which is heated into a lot of smaller discussions that I think ultimately diffract from the real issues that exist in the game. And don't get me wrong, RMT is a very real issue in the game, but there's also been this discussion around how much cheating RMT is compared to having an alt account, or why people should be punished from the race if they only RMT'd a little bit, or why other people who have obviously RMT'd haven't been banned. In my opinion, AGS's stance on RMT and the race is fair. If you RMT'd, you broke the code of conduct directly and you should have been banned permanently. But I also agree that AGS's policy on RMT has been very loose at best and is a definite real problem. There should have been permabans for RMT from the beginning, but there's been numerous times that RMTers get away with it, or they have a 3-strike policy, or just get unbanned for mysterious reasons. This has ultimately cultivated a stance among people that have RMT'd that it was okay to do so in some capacity. The reality being that whether you RMT'd in Tier 3 or Tier 4, you've had an advantage since you did so. To how much of an advantage would obviously depend on how much you received, but the advantage is still there. And if AGS allowed some people who RMT'd compared to others, it's still not fair to people that have not RMT'd when competing. And there is the perspective of the Omega whales who have spent thousands legitimately that would have that undermined if AGS allowed any amount of RMT to exist in the race. While at the same time, there's also the perspective from people that have been farming since day one, where their time and effort would also be undermined if AGS allowed it. Personally, I think it's almost crazy to have that discussion at all, because it explicitly states in the code of conduct not to engage in real money transactions. It's cheating and it shouldn't be allowed. Which has brought up the discussion of people with alt accounts. I think that most people see alt account and assume that this is someone with 6 New York City rats on that roster that buy buses and have super low effort gold gains from it. And while I think that people do this, and I think they are lazy and it's less respectable, I don't see anywhere in the code of conduct where it's cheating. What people point to for this is that in the code of conduct under the fair play clause, there is a line that reads, "We reserve the right to determine what constitutes unfair play and to take corrective action we deem appropriate." Now, AGS has made a stance about busing. They've stated that it's legal to do, but if you receive payment from sources that can be traced to RMT or bots, then you're opening your own liability and can receive those consequences. But AGS hasn't made any statement saying that simply having or playing on a second account is against the code of conduct. But regardless, there are people that get lumped into the same group as the previous mentioned rats that play more than one account and earn everything legitimately. If someone plays 2 accounts, they have a roster that's invested into, they manually run all of their raids and do all their dailies, I think they deserve everything that they earn. The game itself is unnecessarily restrictive against people that simply want to farm more or play the game more. And there's all these edge cases that get brought up with this that simply ignore the statement that if you earn everything legitimately, then you deserve what you earn. If you're buying gems to resell on your other account to bypass the trust system, you are exploiting the trust system. If you're botting on Curzans and life skills, you are cheating. If you RMT on one account and send it over to your main account, it's still RMT. All of these edge cases that people bring up with alt accounts all ultimately end up being directly in the code of conduct as cheating. But if you earn everything legitimately, the only thing you can point to is if AGS decides it's unfair, then it's cheating. which they've never said anything about alt accounts or trading. And I know someone out there is thinking, no, I know someone who got banned for playing their alt account. All they did was play 7 different alt accounts that they have one character each on, and they do their dailies and life skills every single day at the same time. To which I'm gonna say, your homie that was banned for botting or bot-like behavior wasn't because he was playing more than one account. It's because he was botting. He's never going to admit it to you, but there's a 99.99% chance that he was. It's not some impossibly hard thing to figure out. On the back end, when one guy is playing for 18 hours a day, has the exact same inputs and positions every time he logs in, and has a known macro or botting software running, there's a solid chance he's botting. And there's the idea that if you earn gold on that account and you send it over to your main account, that you're bypassing the 6-character gold limit. And I don't think so. The account has the 6-character gold limit. If I make a second account, that account has a 6-character gold limit. There's nothing against trading from one account to another. If you somehow found a bug that lets you earn gold on 9 characters instead of 6 on a single account, then you would obviously be cheating. But systematically, there's nothing against trading, and there's little difference between someone quitting the game and giving all their stuff to somebody else that they earn legitimately versus someone who just farms it all themselves on a second account. And arguably, some people have received significantly larger benefits from being a popular streamer and having millions of gold given to them than other people who have just been playing 2 accounts legitimately. I bring this up because what's the real issue here with alt accounts? It's people cheating with it. But people that properly play an account because they want to farm more or play more are miscategorized into this same group. But I have to ask the question, why would someone even want to make a second account to farm with? And this goes back to the ultimate game design. Why is it so restrictive on being able to play the game more? I was told that this game was supposed to respect my time that I invest into it. The obvious reason is that Smilegate makes more money if they limit how much you can do. This entices players to spend more in the pay-to-win shop to skip the stuff that they would normally farm for. Why is there a 6-character gold limit? People often cite that a 6-character gold limit was put in place because people could farm on 20 characters had such an advantage that it made others feel like they needed to play that much to keep up. The reality is that the people that are playing 20 characters aren't able to keep up with the people that have spent thousands in the pay-to-win shop. So if people that can only play at most 6 characters a week can't keep up with people that play 20, and people that play 20 characters can't keep up with people that pay to win, where does this argument really come from? That means that 99% of the population isn't able to keep up with pay to win no matter what they do. I honestly don't see a reason for the 6-character gold limit at all, and if it weren't there, then people that play multiple accounts to farm more also wouldn't be lumped in with the Omega Rats getting buzzed on every character. And people will say that if you have more than a 6-character gold limit, then people will just make more rats and take buses to get extra gold. Again, I think if someone wants to spend 18 hours a day getting bussed, then power to them. I'm not going to be jealous about someone that's wasting that much time on this game. And that's coming from me, who plays 2 accounts and grinds like crazy. I made a second account from scratch. I manually run all of my dailies when I do them. I run every raid myself on stream, usually with complete randoms and pugs. Without my second account, there is undeniably a large number of people that would not have completed some amount of raids because I took them and I play with pretty much everyone. I've done countless amounts of coaching runs and taught people how to do raids that I've already done with my second account. People want to claim that this is cheating when I put more time and effort into the game than 95% of the population. If I want to play the game more, why do I need to be punished for doing so? It's just disrespectful to people's time spent, and shocking that this is frowned upon to a point that saying people should be banned for it while a certain someone is RMT'd over 50 million gold can open up a live stream after a short ban and broadcast their negative 29 million gold balance. And that person is able to play near consequence free. And sure, RMT is banned in the race, but to say that I should be permabanned for putting 2.5 years of effort into my second account that's 100% earned while this gets a small slap on the wrist is insane. And ultimately, I think the issue really comes from bussing in general. The problem people have with alt accounts just getting bussed and having low effort characters comes from the fact that people are also supportive of bussing and do this. And again, I don't really have an issue with bussing. I think if you're putting the effort in to do it, then go for it. But as AGS stated, if you're receiving money from RMTers or bots, from the backend perspective it also looks like you're RMTing or botting. So this is very much a do at your own risk. But then we just end up back at this mute point that people can't keep up with people that do that. But I've bussed a lot of raids. I don't do it anymore because it's very time consuming, but even playing 2 accounts, even bussing raids, I still can't keep up with people that pay to win. My main is 3.2k combat power right now, If I'm extremely lucky, I might be able to get to 3.5k by the time Kazeros comes out. But I can look at people that have spent $20,000 on the game and see that they have a full roster of 17, 20s or higher of different classes, full books, as many or more level 10 gems as me, which I play 11 Deathblades. I really only have one set of gems, and they all have near abyss accessories, which this simple fact immediately disproves the argument that people farming more has some sort of negative impact on the market. There's an incorrect correlation made between people that are able to farm more and a market influence that things are more expensive because of it. This entire argument goes out of the window when you have the cash shop. Not to mention, when you look at prices of relic books and gems, they're expensive because the supply sucks. Is a grudge book worth 400k? No. It's terrible for powerverse investment. It's literally the worst investment to make. But they're so rare to get, and people want that extra game for the race or harder content, that ultimately the price settles at 400k because that's what people are willing to pay versus how scarce they are. This mentality of nerfing the player and not buffing the design is just the exact opposite of what needs to happen, especially given the player count on global compared to Korea. And what are we even trying to keep up with? Right now, it's the Kazeros race, but it should be extremely clear that this race was never meant to be a fair race among the population, because Smilegate already knows that it's impossible to keep up with people that pay to win. The reality is that Smilegate and AGS don't care how much you want to play, they care about how much you want to spend on the game. Which this really baffles me, because when you have this massive cash shop in the game, you sell gold, you sell materials, you sell cards, you sell solutions to game design problems, and people buy it, then you really have significantly less incentive to make the game good or fix game design problems that exist. There's no reason Azina's Blessing had to be added with the inclusion of mana food. Mana is an archaic MMO system that has no place in Lost Ark to begin with. Resource management is not a core component to combat in Lost Ark, it's an annoyance. All Smilegate had to do was increase mana regen across the board for characters and you wouldn't need mana food. But that also means you would have less of a reason to buy Azina's Blessing and give them $5.50. Which I have to mention, the 550 crystal price for Azina's Blessing, being that this is a per character buff, and if you want to buy the lowest amount of royal crystals, you get 1,000 crystals for $10. So it's egregiously priced that you can't even get 2 of them for spending $10. But if you spend $20, you get just enough crystals to buy 4 of them. So if you want to spend $10, you can get it for 1 character, but if you spend $20, you can get it for 75% of your roster. And if you want to spend $30, you still can't get it on all 6. So if you want Azina's Blessing on all 6 of your characters, you have to buy $40 worth of royal crystals, which at a minimum gives you enough to buy 8. But since they don't offer the ability to buy $40 in one purchase, they then try to entice you with the $50 Royal Crystal Pack, which gives you enough to buy 10. So there's no minimum amount of money you can spend that allows you to buy just 6 characters worth, which is all you need. They lock you into either getting less than what you want or more than you asked for to entice you to come back later and buy more with the leftovers. And yeah, someone is going to say, but it's a pay-to-win game, what do you expect? And what I expect is better game design decisions that allow an avenue of farming for what you want, or you can spend money. A lot of other games give much better options to being able to farm while also being pay-to-win games. But ultimately, I agree. The fact that the game is pay-to-win shows the inherent flaws with pay-to-win games now more than ever. Because Smilegate and AGS is obviously milking its player base to death at this point. Why do alternate farming methods need to be locked behind RNG or gambling with incredibly low chances? Why are there restrictions on playing the game more? Why hasn't the gem supply or book supply been increased or even thought about being increased in the core game? It's because they want your money. And this is genuinely concerning because Lost Ark's player count is declining rapidly, and Kazeros is coming up, and we've had very little insight into what's actually coming after Kazeros. Right now, we already know people are unhappy with the art grid system and the RNG surrounding it. Smilegate has already made it clear that the art grid is meant to be another year-long grind, which from what I can tell people don't want. I certainly don't want to be grinding another system that long. And Kazeros is, for a lot of people, the big bad boss at the end of the game. This is essentially the Lich King in every aspect. When World of Warcraft released, many players were already familiar with Warcraft 3 and played through the Frozen Throne, or at a minimum knew the trilogy that was to be coming. When the Lich King finally died at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, a significant amount of people quit the game. And yes, there's reasons beyond the story that caused that,
but World of Warcraft had 15 million subscribers during Wrath of the Lich King. If World of Warcraft lost 10% of its population because they ultimately ended the game story-wise, then WoW still had 13.5 million people playing the game. If Lost Ark loses 10% of its population from the story concluding for them, then Lost Ark dips below 10,000 average players on all of global, which is the lowest it's ever been since the game released. When people say there's a support surplus or a DPS shortage, what they actually mean to say is that Lost Ark has a player shortage. And I think that if Loa On doesn't impress in an extraordinary way, then more than 10% of the population will exit after Kazeros. And does this mean that the game will die? Not necessarily, but it's certainly going to be a living skeleton of what it was. And the reality is that even if Loa On does impress and people want to play the game again, they're still unnecessarily restricted on being able to play. The new player experience in Lost Ark is abysmal. If you want to make a new account, you'll most likely get one power pass and event to get one character up to tier 4. If you want to make another character after that, you'll have to manually go through the entire story, run every raid to get new gear which still has time gating to it. You'll need to hone out of tier 3, which on average still costs 150,000 gold in just the crafting cost to go from 1600 to 1620. You'll need to do elixirs and transcendence, which is time gated. You'll need to level all of your characters to level 70, which takes a couple of weeks. You'll still have to spend 9 Fions per ability stone from the market to roll them. You'll need to do all of this bullshit while also earning around 18,000 gold a week per character that's pure bound gold that can't be used on the market from solo raids. It would take you nearly a month, and for a new player it would take much longer than that, just to get the gold while spending nowhere else to get one more character to tier 4. And that only begins your tier 4 journey at this point, because if this comes after Kazeros, you'll still need to finish your A-Gear set, you need to finish Karma, you need to advance zone just to get to Kazeros so that you can finally begin your year-long grind on the art grid. Which there's no way you'd even be able to start working on Karma until you earn a reasonable amount of gold from raids. Which you need alts to do, which means you either need to wait for more power passes, manually level them, or you spend money. This is by far Lost Ark's biggest problem. This isn't sustainable, and while the game might be alive with 10k people on all of global, there is a steep cliff that will happen once people realize how many people are actually playing the game. Once we see numbers below 10k, the game will effectively die with no changes to it because people will quit, and there's a snowball effect because people don't want to be the last one on a dead game. Lost Ark has been digging its own grave now since the start of tier 4, and has multiple opportunities to correct this, but they've decided to ignore that and just start carving its own headstone instead. And to me this is sad to see, because this game's potential is unreasonably high. Lost Ark peaked at 1.3 million players on launch. There is genuine interest in this style of MMORPG that is clear as day. But it's obvious that there's too many inherently bad game design decisions that alienate people from being able to play or want to keep playing. Which it's also hard to even call this game an MMORPG anymore. There's basically no social interaction in the game revolves around playing out of menus, people treat the game like work instead of having fun because that's all there is to do. You have assignments and work, and every 6 months when a new raid comes out you get 1 week of fun. I was watching this recent Asmongold video about Classic WoW and couldn't help but see a strong resemblance to issues we face here with Classic Plus.
And this is the other problem, and remember what I said, how you needed the trifecta of designers? The problem is that a lot of very, very hardcore players want to have effectively a menu simulator. And I think that that's the problem with Retail WoW, is that Retail WoW has spent a lot of time listening to the most hardcore players inside of their community. They've listened to the dumbest and also the best players. And Retail WoW has created a player base that appeals to about 30% of the population. The top 15% and the bottom 15%. But where's the middle 70% to go? Nowhere. And I think that's the real that's the real group that's being captured by Classic WoW. And making harder raids than Naxxramas, making more difficult solo challenges in Classic WoW, making grinds that take 2 years to do. This is bullshit that's invented by people that want to turn the video game into a job. And that's where you need the insight and intelligence of designers like people like Kevin Jordan, for example, or, somebody like Miyazaki for Elden Ring or Dark Souls that can listen to what these people are saying and then understand it, but not implement it into the game directly. Because I think that's the big problem, is that Retail WoW is effectively, made for the most hardcore audiences.
There is an obvious disconnect between the player base and the developers. And to Asmongold's point, there needs to be an understanding and respect from multiple parties on the design of the game. When the developers don't respect the player's time and they turn the game into work, it's just not a good game. And in my opinion, Lost Ark has sealed its game design in stone. I'm not sure if anything can be added to the game that breaks the cycle of doing homework and chores for 6 months until the next 2-boss raid comes out. It's very difficult to tell the direction the game is going to take, and while I want to participate in the Kazeros Race, it certainly gets more and more discouraging to play the more you realize how much the game is stacked against people that want to play it more. There are very obvious solutions to many problems in this game that Smilegate just refuses to do. There's no reason gems or books need to be this hard to obtain. There's no reason it should cost any amount of gold to get out of tier 3. There's no reason we should expect to go through 17 progression systems on a new character before that character's useful. There's no reason the game needs to restrict people from playing more and earning more based on more time put into the game. Well, there is a reason, and it's because Smilegate would make less money doing so. Which again just baffles me, because it also seems so obvious that you need players to make money from players. So alienating millions from the game for greedy intentions is just self-sabotaging your own profits. And this is really only scratching the surface on terrible design choices. Let's not forget that the one good Gamba system that they added recently was the Frog, which significantly decreased the value of books and made them more reasonable for people to get. Albeit still way too expensive, but we saw definitive price decreases, which I stated in my last video would ultimately go up after the Frog was gone. Which of course, the Frog has been removed before the Kazeros Race and prices have skyrocketed since then. Gem supply has only been nerfed. I saw a Reddit post saying that gem supply wasn't nerfed because of the cube change, which is true, but they nerfed gem acquisition in tier 3. They want to remove gems from tier 3 merchants like the Triangle Shop. The initial acquisition of tier 4 gems was nerfed compared to the end of tier 3. Currently, right now, if you run a 1640 Curzan, there is a chance that you won't get a gem. There's also the much more likely chance that you will only get one level 1 tier 4 gem, and this extends all the way to 1660. This is equal to a level 3 tier 3 gem. If you ran the highest level Chaos Dungeon in tier 3, you got more gems than doing Curzan at the beginning of tier 4. Smilegate addressed this by nerfing tier 3 gem acquisition, not buffing tier 4 gem acquisition. This is again just the opposite mindset to have. This is punishing a player base for bad design choices. And then they also started selling cube packages and gems in bundles as well. So there's an obvious correlation between the lack of supply and the addition of supply added through the cash shop. Unfortunately, right now, it doesn't seem like this behavior is going to stop though. Which again, when we look at the player count, this is getting more and more than just worrying. And when people start to worry, there's a fall off. There will be a mass exodus. So I really hope Smilegate has been preparing for their biggest Loa on ever. Because given that this is coming after a monumental conclusion in the story, there's a very real possibility that the game nosedives if there isn't anything promising coming. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you enjoying the direction that Lost Ark is going? What are your thoughts on RMT when the game is already pay to win? Should alt accounts exist alongside heavy restrictions on playing the game? And do you guys think that Loa On is going to bring some heat? I certainly hope so. But if I see any improvements, I'll be sure to keep you guys updated. So until the next one, dudes. Peace!